viewers, and welcome back to Vin Wins. Before you say anything, I know it's been a while, I know I haven't made a Red Dead video in months, and I know you're not interested in my excuses. Instead, today, I'm gonna tell you lucky ninjas the story of how I flex SpongeBob SquarePants levels of beef on the weak-ass citizens of Hallownest, as featured in the game Hollow Knight. So it all started when my boy Justin hit me up and was like, "Hey man, Hollow Knight is great, you should play it." So, I looked it up, found some reviews, checked out some Let's Plays. And that shit looked dry, so I was like, nah. But then my birthday happened, and he was like, "Well, what if I buy it for you? Trust me, man, it's real good." And I was like, okay, maybe if you get it for me, which he actually did. But then I got Crusader Kings 3 like a week later, and, well, so fast forward a month and the game is actually free on the PlayStation Store. It was as if the entire universe wanted to make this game available to me. So, at this point, with our entire friendship on the line, I had no other choice but to log into PSN, go to the store, renew my PlayStation Plus subscription, download the game, and once and for all show Justin how Vin wins. And so our tale begins. The tutorial level was simple enough and gave me the chance to figure out the controls without directly telling me, which made me feel smart. After some pest control and light vandalization, I looked in a giant mirror that affirmed I was in fact a badass of great strength, so pretty much what I tell myself in the mirror every morning. You might think that creating a YouTube channel and making Win half of your username would project a deep sense of confidence and self-assurance, but believe me viewers, the facade is more fragile than Hallownestian infrastructure, so I really appreciated the compliment. Anyway, after impaling myself multiple times, one of which was total bullshit, I performed a masterful 13-hit combo on the only doorway protecting this quiet hamlet from the outside world and let myself in. DIRTmouth, despite having a beautiful art style and a wistful string-led theme, totally sucked balls. For one thing, it was dark as fuck, and there was pollen flying all over the place and even emanating from this one bench, which, as a seasonal allergenic, instinctively made me reach for my Zyrtec. Next, it was seemingly abandoned except for this one old guy whom, if I were to come across a dark and abandoned town behind a sealed gateway, I would not want to idly chat with in the town square, especially considering he mentions the rest of the townsfolk willingly went down a well or some shit, disappearing one by one until literally only he was left to tell the tale. Anyway, because this is a video game and I had a friend to flex on, I too jumped down the well and was surprised to find neither the angry spirits of dead Japanese girls nor my quick death at the sudden impact of hitting the floor of an empty well, but rather a branching path that foretold a much grander and expansive experience than the desolate town above implied. I was a sucker for environmental storytelling and exploration, and Justin knew it. The bastard had gotten me. I was immersed. After meeting the locals, all of which were some kind of bug, I learned how to channel my ki and began to mentally map the winding tunnels of the Forgotten Crossroads. Eventually, I ran into this elephant-looking motherfucker which sold me an actual map for 30, shells? Eggs? What the fuck are these things supposed to be? Well anyway, I bought it from the elephant bug and was immediately shocked to find that the Shiesty Malacca had sold me an incomplete map. What's more, it contained no indicators of where I actually was at any given moment, and so basically was as useful as a crudely drawn map on the back of a Chili's napkin. Fortunately, my big brain knob has a maximum of 11, and so after a quick assessment, I correctly deduced where I was and made my way towards the nearest Better Business Bureau office to report the salacious mapmaker. Instead, I found a twerking firefly, freed a caterpillar from captivity, soiled myself,
Woo, boy, that thing came out of nowhere. Oh my god.
And had my first mini-boss encounter. It was no challenge whatsoever, and though likely placed more to warm me up to this game's concept of boss fights, still left me feeling like a goddamn hoss after completing it on the first try. I can't stress how critical of a mental misstep this was so early in my gameplay, or how it later would snowball into intense frustration when met with my first actual boss fight, but we'll get there shortly. More exploring, more worms, a stag beetle-based fast travel system, stag travel, fast straggle, and a quick visit back to DIRTmouth later, I discovered that people were beginning to move back into the town, and goddammit they were charging me for even the most basic of writing utensils. By this point, I had begun to memorize the central area of the Forgotten Crossroads and was absolutely flying through in efforts to map more of the unknown region. Eventually, I found another resting bench and learned that my additional map progress is marked only after finding one of these benches scattered throughout the world, which kind of sucks, but okay, I guess. Assuming that the giant spiky face was my next destination, I opened up a shortcut for later and headed inside. Here's where my earlier confidence began to backfire on me dramatically as I came face to face with what I could only assume was this universe's equivalent of Big Chungus. Despite my Saiyan training and keen evasive techniques, I can say without shame that I was scared shitless of this giant asshole and proceeded to be promptly flattened in my futile attempts to find a hole in his attack pattern. I licked my wounds, retraced my steps, and returned to face my schoolyard bully. This time, he was protected by the ghost of my past failures, which I had to overcome and therefore mentally accept before I could do battle with the behemoth again. A second time through, I cranked my brain knob up to 12 despite the manufacturer's warning, and with the most cowardly techniques possible, managed to seize victory over Sir Chungus. Imagine my surprise when in the adjacent chamber was not a treasure chest, resting point, or any other conventional post-boss gaming trope, but another goddamn locked door. It couldn't be. The wide open spacing, the unobtrusive background, this fucking game was about to throw a second boss fight at me, in the room directly beside where I'd narrowly beaten the first. I braced my sphincter accordingly and walked around to trigger the boss fight. Annoyingly, the fight turned out to be directly above the space more obviously suited for the boss fight, and ended up surprising me despite seeing it coming. I soiled my pants for the second time as an even larger bug appeared before me. The false knight only killed me once and turned out to be a much bigger pussy than expected, further punctuated by the harmless-looking plush doll that rolls out of the armor once you've actually beaten the damn thing. The game knew that I felt this was too easy, and was showing me that it actually was. All the same, with my trial done, I tried to return to the surface to see if the elder bug had anything for me, but like a distractible child in a fairy tale forest, wandered off the path and found myself at the home of the snail shaman. Despite his unsettling name and appearance, the snail shaman's house initially kicked ass. He not only had a save point in his front yard, but also offered me free power-ups, which I obviously was keen to accept. Unfortunately, my excitement was short-lived as the snail shaman turned out to be a shady asshole and totally roofied the spell he gave me, which is apparently a thing you can do to spells. I passed out and was summarily coerced into completing another side dungeon if I was to be freed and therefore allowed to save my progress post-spell acquisition. Reluctantly, I pressed forth, utilizing the new spell the shaman had given me to make quick work of my rolling enemies. Just as the power fantasy was returning in full, I fell into the chamber of what I assumed to be the dungeon boss and was promptly spanked like an amateur fetishist. In my defense, in addition to a shield impervious to my regular attacks, this asshole also spat lava and enemy mobs at me at the same time. So yeah, cut me some slack. Anyway, I eventually defeat Metal Sonic on my second go, and the snail shaman frees me. I attempt to answer his thanks with a vicious threat, but remember that this game does not feature an RPG-based branching dialogue system, so opportunity missed, guys. The shaman gives me a charm commemorating my deeds here, but I'm in no mood for a congratulations for a task I had no intention of completing in the first place. So, desperate to conclude my adventures for the day before I'm roofied or fall through the floor again, I immediately save my game and flex on the Forgotten Crossroads.